The people of the United States are governed by the rule of law, a body of law that rests on a single document, the federal Constitution. This, the Constitution of the United States, stands as the fundamental law of the land, law that defines both the form and the power of the national government, law that was created by a stroke of political genius in one of America's darkest hours. In 1783, Americans had won their independence, but they faced a new responsibility, the task of creating a nation out of 13 states. But hard times were stalking the land. The people were plunging deep into debt. In Massachusetts, the courts were confiscating farmers' lands for payment of their debts. This led to rebellion.
Your Honor, the defendant has admitted his debt to my client. In such a case, the law is clear. We call upon the court to render judgment and to order the sale of the defendant's lands in satisfaction of our claim.
No!
I order that this court be cleared. No, Judge. You're not going to do that. We're here to get justice.
Captain Daniel Shays, you are in contempt of court. I will see you jailed for this.
Oh, no. You're not going to judge me or any other man in this county. You'll adjourn this court, or we'll clear you out. Now,
Yes. This is unlawful rebellion against the sovereign state of Massachusetts.
call it what you will, Judge. But we're not going to stand by and watch the people lose their homes. See, you take away their lands. The law and the government won't help us. We've got to change the law and the government.
The rising of farmers in western Massachusetts came to be called Shay's Rebellion. It shocked the country, but it was not an isolated incident. It reflected the deep distress of farmers and frontiersmen throughout the land. In the towns and cities, men spoke with alarm of anarchy and complained of their own grievances. Merchants were hotly resentful of acts of the states that hampered trade.
Oh, here's one more item, Mr. Hardwick. I see here that you have 100 of these kegs of nails in transit from New York to Connecticut. Now, the tariff on these nails...
The tariff on those. How can the state of New York levy a tariff on nails to be sold in the state of Connecticut? I'll have to pay Connecticut the tariff besides.
Aye, sir, but these nails were discharged as cargo in New York. The law says you'll pay.
Look here, my friend. Do you know what your government and the other state governments are doing to the people of this country? You're wrecking our trade and ruining our industry. And not only with these tariffs either. Look here. Look at all this money. And every bit of it worthless. Continental money. Ha!
Not worth a continental, I suppose.
No, indeed they aren't, sir. And if these evils burden us much longer, my trade won't be worth a continental either.
Well, be that as it may, sir, perhaps...
Tariffs and worthless paper money were only two of the evils plaguing the nation. 3,000 miles away in London, an American representative was facing another evil.
Next question, Lord Sheffield. I have the note of my government respecting regulations of your government excluding American shipping from certain British ports.
Ah, yes, Mr. Adams. My government has studied the note with great attention. Great attention, I assure you. But we do not choose to reply at this time.
Permit me to say again, Your Excellency, that these regulations have virtually closed British markets to American person shipping. This has brought great hardship on our people.
Mr. Adams, when your government, as you call it, of Paris, then we shall be disposed to discuss this matter.
Your Excellency, let me assure you again that my government, the Congress, is doing all it can to persuade the states to observe the terms of the treaty.
But not 1 shilling has been paid to British citizens to compensate their loss of property in the war. Mr. Adams, I have to tell you that my government finds it quite impossible to deal with an animal that has 13 fists and no head.
Back home in Philadelphia, the feeble Congress of the Confederation delayed and squabbled. Under the Articles of Confederation, there was no executive. Congress was a loose assembly of representatives of independent sovereign states. Congress had little power beyond making war and conducting foreign affairs. It had no power to raise money except through grants from the states. This made the Congress wholly dependent on the goodwill of state governments. In the face of quarrels at home and threats abroad, congressmen were unable to act.
Military force, sir. Shays and his outlaws should be put down by military force.
I fancied the authorities of Massachusetts have seen to that.
But the state may not be able to put down the outlaws alone.
Very possibly. But you won't see the states giving Congress the means to do it.
No. The states keep their money at home. So many states have refused to order our requisition lately that this government can scarcely pay its bills.
And the states are right. A standing army is a threat to liberty. How easy for ambitious men to turn it against the states and the people.
Oh, sir, you fear strong government too much. If the ills of these days are not soon remedied, we'll have no government.
While some men feared strong government, others were alarmed as the states became embroiled in quarrels over lands, boundaries, and commerce. A dispute broke out between Maryland and Virginia over navigation on the Potomac River. This led to the calling of a convention to meet at Annapolis in September 1786. To this meeting, other states were invited. Shay's rebellion was still at its height, and some far-seeing leaders saw in the meeting an opportunity to take action. Before the convention assembled, they gathered at Mount Vernon to plan a bold undertaking.
General Washington, another such outbreak as this Massachusetts affair and we shall have anarchy. I foresee trouble in other places also.
Yes, Colonel Hamilton. There are combustibles in every state that a spark might set fire to. But who besides a Tory or a Briton would have predicted this?
Quite true, General. Madison and I have been talking over a plan of action. We feel that no halfway measures will do.
No, General. No use to talk of amending the Articles of Confederation.
What is your plan?
About this meeting at Annapolis, General. With your influence and the support of others, we might use this meeting to make a general appeal for action toward a new framework of government.
We must not let this opportunity slip away, General.
Under Washington's leadership, the plan succeeded. Delegates from 5 states met at Annapolis to send out a call for a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation. In May 1787, the old State House in Philadelphia saw the gathering of delegates for this convention. It was a meeting almost unique in history. Seldom before had men assembled for the expressed purpose of drafting a written constitution for a nation. But these men held, in common with other Americans, that the powers of government should be bound by written law. When the meeting began, the delegates faced one question. Had they come to amend the Articles of Confederation or to fashion a new framework of government? As Madison recorded in his journal, this was the major issue when Virginia's Governor Randolph rose to propose a wholly new plan of federal government. This, the Virginia plan, called for a government that was national in power. The plan provided for a legislature in which representation would be based on population. This touched off the bitterest debate, how the members of the federal legislature were to be chosen. Speaking out for popular election and a strong government was Pennsylvania's James Wilson.
I must insist upon drawing the most numerous branch of the legislature immediately from the people. I am for raising the federal pyramid to a considerable altitude, and for that reason wish to give it as broad a base as possible.
No, no.
The election should be by the state legislatures. I hold the people should have immediately as little to do as may be about the government. The people want for information and are constantly liable to be misled.
Roger Sherman of Connecticut had spoken for a group of delegates from the smaller states. The debates quickly became a struggle between this small state faction and the advocates of strong government who came chiefly from the larger states. As heated argument continued, the small state for a counterplan by Patterson of New Jersey.
If Randolph's plan prevails, we may take ourselves home. Maryland will never give up her freedom.
Nor will Connecticut, Mr. Martin. My state will never stand by to see Pennsylvania and Virginia rule the country.
Neither will New Jersey. Now, here's a plan I have made. A proposal to bring the convention back to its senses. You'll see I've enlarged the revenue powers of the Congress, but maintained the principle of equal representation for every state.
I am particularly pleased with this. Your proposition that the executive shall be appointed by the Congress and not by the people.
Yes, and to let the state legislatures continue to appoint the members of Congress. Gentlemen, if the convention goes further than this, we shall be opening the door to tyranny.
Patterson's small state plan retained the weak structure of the Articles of Confederation, but it offered one proposal that was to become the cornerstone of the Constitution.
Resolved that all acts of the United States in Congress shall be the supreme law of the respective states.
Despite this proposal, the small state plan met violent opposition. Days and weeks of bitter debate followed. Tempers flared, charges of selfish interest, lust for power flew back and forth. As nights and days went by, there seemed little hope of agreement. No man could foretell what the convention would do. With both factions stubbornly holding on, feeling mounted higher and higher, the convention seemed about to dissolve in confusion. Till suddenly they heard a moving appeal from Washington.
No, gentlemen. If to please the people we offer what we ourselves disapprove, how can we afterwards defend our work? Let us raise a standard to which the highest and the honest can repair. The event is in the hands of God.
As the deadlock dragged on through the long nights and long days of argument, the conflict turned into deeper bitterness. Some came to feel they faced an irreconcilable dilemma. James Madison declared,
"Gentlemen, I fear that the two extremes before us are a perfect separation into independent states or a perfect incorporation of 13 states into one nation."
Then a committee, appointed to review the issue, had a brilliant flash of ingenuity. It reached what came to be called the Great Compromise on the question of representation.
It appears to me, gentlemen, that the states may be regarded in two different aspects. In the first, as districts of people composing one political society. In the second, as so many political societies.
I agree with Dr. Johnson, and I believe this settles the matter once and for all. Both the people and the states can have representation in Congress.
Will you please read your statement again so the committee will have the proposal clearly before it?
First, that in the first branch of the legislature, each of the states now in the Union shall be allowed one member for every 40,000 inhabitants. Second, that in the second branch, each state shall have an equal vote.
Do we all agree?
This broke the deadlock. The delegates determined to give the states equal representation in the Senate and to base representation in the House on population. The way was open for agreement on other issues, but controversy continued.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
At last, in September 1787, the draft of the Constitution was ready for action. The delegates had done their work well. They had devised a remarkable innovation in political ideas, a government that was both national and federal in form and power.
Gentlemen, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
General Washington, may I say a few words to the delegates?
Yes, Mr.
I have often, in the course of the session, and in the vicissitudes of my own hopes and fears, looked on that behind the president without being able to tell whether it was a rising or a setting sun. But now, at length, it is my happiness to know that it is a rising sun and not a setting sun. Hear, hear, hear.
On the last day, they gathered to put their names to the great document. But the struggle was just beginning. A number of delegates refused to sign. They went home to lead the opposition, fast rising against the Constitution. Public opinion was fiercely divided throughout the country. Some men feared monarchy. Others attacked the Constitution for its lack of a Bill of Rights. The sentiment of the Massachusetts Convention was voiced by Amos Singletary.
These lawyers and men of learning and moneyed men expect to be managers of this Constitution and get all the power and all the money into their own hands. And then they will swallow up all us little folks like the great Leviathan. Yes, just as the whale swallowed up Jonah.
To meet this attack, the Friends of the Constitution offered a compromise. They proposed that the convention ratify the Constitution on condition that a Bill of Rights be added as soon as the new government was formed. This overcame the opposition in Massachusetts.
Resolved further that this convention recommend the drafting of a Bill of Rights to be incorporated in a set of amendments to be ratified by the several states.
But the outlook for ratification was still dark in a number of states. The Federalist leaders labored feverishly to explain to the people the principles underlying the new framework of government.
What do you say to this language, Mr. Hamilton? The proposed Constitution is in strictness neither a national nor a federal Constitution, but a composition of both.
Keen argument, Mr. Madison, but to little use. Everyone reads the Federalist Papers, but few are persuaded by them.
You are right, I fear. Certainly, Governor Clinton and his faction are going to make things hot for you in New York.
Clinton is a dangerous demagogue. But we will defeat him, even if we have to threaten to withdraw the city of New York from the rest of the states.
I regret that we have no such weapon as that in Virginia.
Yes. Virginia is in danger, too. With both Mason and old Patrick Henry thundering against us.
And Henry cannot be won over. He calls the Constitution a conspiracy to set up a monarchy.
A firebrand. How will you answer him?
As I see it, there is but one workable answer, and that's the one reached in Massachusetts. The Federalists in every state must agree to a Bill of Rights.
I suppose it is the answer. But it will not win over such men as Clinton and Henry.
No. But it offers us our last best chance to save the Constitution.
Madison's strategy of compromise succeeded. As the state conventions gathered, the opposition was powerful, and the debates were long and bitter. But slowly, by a narrow margin, the Constitution won the day. One by one, the states ratified the document and took their places in the new nation. North Carolina voted no, then joined reluctantly. Rhode Island did not ratify until after the new government was formed. But at last, they stood together. 13 states bound into a firm union, a union founded on the rule of written law, the Constitution of the United States, that down through the years of amendment and interpretation has proved a firm foundation for the growth of government by the people.